The November rain struck the stone of St. George's Church like a warning no one dared to speak out loud. Inside, the air was cold and heavy, as if the walls themselves expected disaster. Lady Isola Maven stood before the altar, wrapped from head to toe in an ivory veil so thick it hid every trace of her face. Not even the curve of her cheek could be seen. This was how society wanted her, hidden, silent, unseen. Whispers slid through the pews like knives. Ladies lifted gloved hands to hide their smiles. Gentlemen leaned close to one another, eager for the moment everyone had come to witness. This was not a wedding to celebrate love. It was a spectacle, a final judgment. "The veiled bride," Lady Euphemia Crownhurst murmured, snapping her fan shut. How generous of His Grace to accept what every other man refused. Soft laughter followed. No one defended the bride. The marble floor beneath Isola's feet felt warmer than the hearts watching her. "They say no man can stand the sight of her face," someone whispered. "Lord Herwood fled the altar itself," another replied, "ran like a coward the moment he lifted her veil." All eyes turned forward. At the altar stood Dorian Thane, Duke of Vanamere. Tall, dark, and still, he looked carved from stone. His gray eyes showed no emotion. He had the kind of presence that quieted rooms and ended arguments without a word. Men feared him. Politicians bowed to him. Society obeyed him. When he announced he would marry Lady Isola, London had erupted with shock. Why would the most powerful duke in England take a bride no one else would claim? The answer was simple. He wanted obedience, not affection. A wife who would never demand his time or question his authority. A woman already broken by shame. The ceremony began in silence. No music, no flowers. The priest spoke of love and honor, and the guests shifted uncomfortably, as if such words were out of place. "I shall," the Duke said when prompted. His voice was calm, distant. "I shall," Lady Isola whispered from beneath her veil. The ring slid onto her finger, heavy and cold. "What God has joined together," the priest said, "let no man put asunder." For a brief moment, sunlight broke through the stained glass and bathed the bride in gold. Through the veil, she looked almost radiant. Then the light vanished, and shadows returned. The Duke offered his arm, not his hand. Isola took it carefully, her movements small and controlled. They walked down the aisle together, past judgment and cruel curiosity. "She brings nothing," Lady Euphemia said softly. "No dowry, no connections, only shame." "And yet he chose her," her companion replied. "Perhaps even the Duke can be foolish." Outside, the rain had stopped. The sky remained gray. A black carriage waited, marked with the Vanamere crest, a crowned wolf etched in gold. As they approached, a young flower seller rushed forward. "For the bride, your grace," she said, holding out a single white lily. The Duke moved to wave her away, but Isola's gloved hand reached out first. She accepted the flower with a faint tremble. The carriage door closed with final force. The wheels began to turn. Inside, silence ruled. "Remove your gloves," the Duke said at last. She obeyed, revealing slender fingers marked with faint signs of work. His eyes flickered, just once. "You understand your position," he continued. "I require order and discretion, nothing more." "Yes, your grace." "The veil will remain in public," he added. "In private, that will change." Isola folded her hands around the lily in her lap. London passed by through the veil like a blurred memory. The city that had once been her home now felt like a prison she was leaving behind. At Vanamere House, towering and cold, servants lined the entrance. The butler hesitated before greeting her. "Welcome, your grace," he said at last. The Duke glanced at her, then at the lily in her hands. Something unreadable crossed his face. "Come," he said, "your new life awaits." Inside, the halls echoed with quiet. He handed her over to the housekeeper and walked away without looking back. That evening, alone in her chamber, Isola removed her veil for the first time that day. Her reflection stared back at her. Pale skin, calm eyes, and a thin silver scar at her temple. This was her crime. When her maid gasped, Isola did not flinch. "This," she said quietly, "is what ruined me." At dinner the veil returned. The Duke watched her closely as she ate with careful grace. "You manage well," he said. "Practice," she replied. "You wore the veil for 3 years." "Yes." "You will remove it tonight." She paused. "Then I ask only one thing. Speak honestly." He studied her. "Truth, then." She stood. Slowly she lifted the veil. The Duke froze. His breath caught. For the first time, the powerful Duke of Vandermeer looked shaken. Silence stretched between them, heavy and alive. "Well?" Isola asked softly. He did not answer at once. He only stared, as if seeing something that changed everything he believed. "The truth," he said finally, his voice low, "is that London is full of fools." And in that moment, something dangerous and unexpected began. Morning light crept into Vandermeer House like a careful guest, touching the tall windows and pale walls without warmth. Lady Isola had not slept well. The Duke's reaction to her unveiled face returned to her thoughts again and again. Shock, silence, truth spoken without cruelty. Then, distance. He had left her alone that night, not with rejection, but with questions. A soft knock came at the door. Ella entered with tea and sunlight in her smile. She stopped short when she saw her mistress's uncovered face in full daylight. "You need not look so startled every time," Isola said gently. "I promise I remain the same." Ella blushed. "Forgive me, Your Grace. You are just very ordinary." "Ordinary," Isola repeated with a faint smile. "After all the rumors, that may be the kindest word." Ella smiled back. "Beautiful, I meant beautiful." The Duke had left a note, short, precise. No veil within the house. Dinner together that evening. Nothing more, nothing less. The day filled quickly. Accounts, servants, schedules. The weight of her new role settled on her shoulders, but she carried it well. Order came naturally to her. Responsibility always had. By afternoon, she found herself alone in the library. Surrounded by books, she felt something close to peace. It did not last. "Lady Euphemia Crownhurst is here," the footman announced. Isola's breath stilled. Of all visitors, this was the one she least wished to see. "Show her in," Isola said after a moment. Lady Euphemia entered with sharp eyes and a tighter smile. When she saw Isola's uncovered face, her control slipped for just a second. "Well," she said, recovering quickly. "How unexpected." "Tea," Isola offered calmly. "How brave of you to abandon the veil," Lady Euphemia said, her tone sweet and sharp at once. "After all the trouble it caused." "Trouble rarely belongs to the one blamed for it," Isola replied. Before Lady Euphemia could respond, the door opened again. The Duke entered. The air changed instantly. He stood beside Isola, close enough that his presence felt deliberate, protective, even if he would never name it so. "My wife's appearance requires no commentary," he said coolly. Lady Euphemia paled. She curtsied stiffly. "Of course, Your Grace. I meant no offense." "You rarely do," the Duke replied. "You simply enjoy consequences." When Lady Euphemia left, the silence that followed felt different, not empty, charged. "You handled her well," the Duke said. "I have learned to," Isola replied. He studied her, as if reassessing something already decided. "You will attend the winterborn ball." Her heart skipped. "Unveiled?" "Yes." "And you?" "I will attend as well." That announcement alone would shake London. The days that followed were filled with preparation. Gowns were chosen, jewels delivered. The Duke watched everything with careful attention, offering no praise, no criticism, only quiet approval. They dined together each evening, at first in silence, then with conversation. Politics, books, the world beyond rumor. Isola found that beneath his cold control lived a sharp mind, and an unexpected sense of fairness. The Duke found that his wife did not shrink, did not flatter, and did not fear him. The night of the winterborn ball arrived wrapped in falling snow. Isola stood before the mirror, her gown dark blue, her scar visible by choice. Ella fastened the last pin with shaking hands. "You look like a duchess," Ella whispered. A knock sounded. The Duke entered. He stopped when he saw her. For the briefest moment, the mask slipped. "You are ready," he said quietly, offering his arm. The ballroom fell silent when they entered. Whispers rushed through the crowd. Faces turned, expectations shattered. This was no monster. This was no broken woman. Isola walked with calm grace, her hand resting lightly on the Duke's arm. He did not leave her side. When the music began, he turned to her. "Will you dance?" She nodded. They moved together as if they had practiced for years. Eyes followed them. Judgments faltered. Lady Euphemia watched from across the room, her smile sharp and failing. As the dance ended, the Duke leaned close. "Let them look." "I am," Isola replied softly, for once without fear. The night shifted around them. Power changed hands without a word. And when the Duke defended her openly, when he spoke against cruelty in a voice London could not ignore, the story of the veiled bride ended forever. But something else was only beginning. Something neither of them had planned. Something far more dangerous than scandal. Feeling. Snow fell softly over London as the Duke and Duchess of Vandermeer left Winterborn House. The noise, the whispers, the stares, all faded behind the closed carriage door. Inside, the silence felt different from before. It was no longer empty or cold. It was full. Isola sat very still, her gloved hands folded in her lap. Her heart had not yet slowed. Tonight had taken more strength than she expected. Facing society without the veil felt like standing without armor in a room full of blades. And yet she had not been cut. The Duke watched her in the dim carriage light. He had seen her composure in the ballroom, the way she carried herself when eyes tried to reduce her. He had seen courage that could not be taught. "You were flawless," he said at last. Isola turned toward him, surprised. Praise from him was rare. "I did only what was required." "No," he replied. "You did more." The carriage rolled through quiet streets, the sound of hooves softened by snow. Lamps glowed faintly outside, lighting the path back to Vandermeer House. When they arrived, servants rushed forward. The Duke stepped down first, then turned back to Isola. Instead of offering his arm as usual, he did something no one expected. He knelt. The Duke of Vandermeer, feared and obeyed by all, lowered himself into the snow before his wife. A sharp breath escaped Isola. "Your Grace, please," she whispered. "People will see." "Let them," he said quietly. He looked up at her, his expression unguarded. "Tonight you stood where others would have hidden. You faced cruelty without becoming cruel. That deserves honor." He rose and lifted her gently from the carriage step, carrying her across the threshold of their home. The servants stood frozen, unsure where to look. Inside, warmth surrounded them. Fires burned, lamps glowed. Snow melted from the Duke's coat as he set Isola down. They stood facing one another, closer than they ever had before. "Our arrangement," Isola began carefully, "has changed." "Yes," he agreed. "It has." She searched his face. "And what has it become now?" The Duke was silent for a long moment. Then he reached out, slowly, as if giving her time to pull away. She did not. "I married you, believing I needed obedience," he said. "What I needed was truth." Isola felt her breath catch. "And what do you want now?" "Partnership," he said simply. "If you will have it." She did not answer with words. Instead, she placed her hand in his, steady and warm. "Yes." From that night forward, Vandermeer House changed. The Duke no longer dismissed her presence. He sought her opinion. He listened. When matters of Parliament troubled him, he spoke of them at dinner. When household decisions arose, he trusted her judgment without question. London noticed. Invitations followed. Visits increased. Some came with genuine curiosity, others with quiet apology. Lady Euphemia did not return. At the first public gathering after the ball, Isola entered without fear. She no longer searched faces for judgment. She no longer measured her steps. The Duke stood beside her, not as shield, but as equal. Whispers turned into admiration. The story spread quickly. Not of a monster hidden behind a veil, but of a woman who endured shame and rose above it. Of a Duke who bent not to society, but to truth. Late one evening, weeks after the ball, Isola stood in the Duke's study. Firelight danced across the walls. On the desk lay a small rosewood box. The Duke opened it and revealed the ivory veil inside. "I kept it," he said. She touched the fabric lightly. "Why?" "Because it reminds me," he replied, "of how easily the world is wrong." He closed the box and set it aside. Then he turned to her. "I fell to my knees when I lifted your veil," he said quietly, "not because of what I saw, but because of what I failed to see before." Isola stepped closer. Then we both learned. Outside, snow began to fall again, soft and clean, covering the past. Inside Vandermeer House, no veils remained, only truth, only respect. And a love born not from perfection, but from courage. The bride society scorned was no longer hidden. She was a duchess. And the Duke who knelt before her never rose alone again.